Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today for our conversation on job searching during the holidays. My name is Jody Hammer, and I am the Career Services Specialist with NPCA's Global Reentry Program. So it's a pleasure to be here with you and talking to my favorite population, Return Peace Corps volunteers, about job search topics. And today is one that's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm excited to talk a little more about job searching during the holidays. So first of all, happy holidays to all of you. We have so many holidays happening during this time, and whatever ones you celebrate, I wish you a very wonderful holiday season. So we're going to go ahead and start right now. I'm just going to do a little, I want to do a poll, or just tell me, give me a thumbs up if you agree with this, true or false, or you can just write true in the chat box as well, of course. Do you think, is the job search worth the effort, the holiday job search, or should you just enjoy and start it up again come, January? Anyone have any thoughts on that? I'm going to open up my chat here and see what we've got already. Anyone have thoughts one way or another? Have you heard anything about whether it's a good or bad time to do a job search? Lexi, what do we have coming in terms of the thumbs up and down? Because I can't see the actual gallery photos.
So we
Yeah.
have Rachel said maybe not. People are out on holiday. Becca said, I hope so. True. And Annalise
Great.
said, I haven't heard, but also seems like a good time to take a break for yourself.
Great. Thank you for those comments. And I think there's some truth in or common beliefs in all of them. Let's go to Rachel's comment. Maybe not. People are out or on holiday. You're right. There are going to be people who are out, so you're not going to be able to reach everyone. But I think this year more than ever, but even in a regular quote unquote normal holiday season, people tend to be, maybe they might have less on their plate at work. So actually, they might have more time and be in kind of that better spirits in a sense because of holidays. And we'll get to all these reasons in a little more detail. But I would absolutely say, so for those of you who are saying, I hope it's going to be a good time. I think that was Becca, or no, I'm Rachel. It is absolutely a good time. I believe very strongly that the holidays are an excellent time to do the job search. Now, does that mean maybe you don't deserve a break and you want to take a break? I mean, you have to make your decision for yourself. So, Annalise, if you've been working really hard and you have been putting out a lot of stuff and you feel like you're in this place where you have a lot of applications out and some things are looking promising and you can afford to take somewhat of a break, more power to you. You could certainly do that. But for those who are, really, in that job search and they need to get something fairly soon, or, they're not staying maybe in an environment where they have free rent and, things like that, where it's a little more, imperative that they get something, or they're just eager to move on. There's so much that you can do during the holidays, and it actually can be a very good time of the year because of it being the holidays, people being maybe more jovial or more like apt to want to help others, things like that. And I think this year more than the regular job search with COVID, because unfortunately, we are mostly stuck home alone or with our immediate families, and not nearly as many people traveling for the holidays due to safety reasons, understandably. There's, I think, even more of a willingness for people to be of help and share their experience, right? And that's what you're doing in career chats, which we'll talk a little bit about more later. But it's being more open to talking to people and helping. But even just so much of when you're talking to people, you're wanting to hear about them and their experience. And people love to talk about themselves, right? It's easy. There's no prep work. So people might be even extra inclined to be like, well, sure. And, and help you out in the holiday times. So absolutely, just know that it can be a very productive time in many different ways. And we're going to go through some of those ways. Okay. when we're talking here. And I hope that from this, you'll gain some ideas on what you may or may not want to do during, your, December, this holiday period. You certainly, as I said, can take that break. Maybe you do it halfway. You spend maybe a little less time than you did beforehand, but you're really, doing some of the things that can be very helpful during the holidays to move you forward in your job search. Okay. So couple of the things in terms of, I just liked this infograph that I found because it covers much of what I generally talk about. So I thought I would use it here. It's, it can be a really good time, right? And there's these, the reasons that they list here, the 5 reasons to continue your holiday search. One of which there's obviously less competition, because I will tell you, many more people think it's a bust, like, oh, nobody's going to be hiring over the holidays, and oh, it's just going to be, I'm going to just, everyone's busy with with their own holidays and celebrations and da 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 da, and so they give up during that time, or they just take the month off. And by doing that, you're exiting that job market, like, some of those jobs that are out there, right? That there's going to be less competition for those jobs. So we all know there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of different stats out there, but averages of number of, applications per job, right? And it can be pretty depressing. But in during the holidays, that goes down a lot because many fewer people are applying. So it can really increase your likelihood of getting to that stage of the interview, where you can wow them with your greatness and your Peace Corps resourcefulness and all of that, and get that job, right? So that's a really important one. Another one, it has to do with, the employers do continue hiring. It's not, they don't just stop hiring during that time, even though people think they maybe do. Many employers actually have job, like, money for a position that's in their budget year, which for most organizations outside of the federal government, which has a different fiscal year end, many organizations, or most, I would even say, have that calendar year fiscal year end. And so if they had some monies that were put in to hire a person for XYZ position, that money may not be guaranteed if they don't hire them by the end of the year. They may lose that money. It may be a use or lose scenario, which can be very common, right? So they have a lot of incentive and motivation to get that position hired by the end of the year. So just know that, right? That you could certainly benefit from that as well, aspect. There's a lot of networking events around the holidays, more than your normal, regular, months, because of the holidays. So you have, whether it's organizations, will have their holiday, party. That includes, volunteer organizations you might be a part of, or, any kind of other types of groups in your, interest areas. Many of them do their holiday parties. Now, yes, I know, I acknowledge that this year, that's a very different environment. You don't have the in-person, at least, holiday parties and all of that taking place, unfortunately, for our own safety. But there will be some that are doing online, and I know that people get sick of the online or Zoom, all of that. So do I admit. But it is a way to at least engage and be able to potentially, meet some people, and hopefully, once this is all over, we'll get back to more of that normal type of, where you can certainly, take advantage of in-person networking events. I will tell you from experience, here in the DC area, for example, and probably many other large, cities, at least, I used to always tell, clients, you could probably eat for free, like your dinner meal, from just going to different free happy hour types of things and doing your, networking and whatever, because there's so many of them. On any given day, there's going to be probably multiple because DC is such a networking type of area anyway, but just in the bigger areas. But check this out. Find you can do some research online. Networking organizations, networking opportunities. Dallas, Texas, or wherever you are, right? And see what you come up with. There. You can also check with people when you talk to people and friends who maybe work in the area to get an idea of what are the big groups or networking organizations in this industry, and then try to tap into them, right? You could try to connect with some of them for a career chat, which again, we're going to talk about in a little bit. So you can definitely benefit from the plethora of networking opportunities that are around, especially in in the during the holiday season. The fourth one that they list on here is you'll earn money for the holidays. And this one, I think they're actually referring to a couple different things. One, sometimes people are looking to work and gain additional money during the holidays. There's a lot of jobs available over the holidays that are just temporary types of jobs or temporary gigs that are, and many that are above and beyond just retail. I mean, retail certainly is one of them, but there's other kinds of jobs as well around the holidays that you can look at. If you look online actually and just do a Google search, best seasonal jobs over the holidays or something like that, if you're looking to gain some money during this time, you can certainly look at that as well. And while doing that, of course, you are networking in a sense, depending on what people are oftentimes. Oh, what do you do? Where do you work? That kind of thing. You can definitely find people, and it's one of the first, if not the first question, which kind of drives me nuts here in DC. Often sometimes even before your name, but definitely after your name. What's your name? Oh, where do you work? It's like that second question, which I know a lot of people hate that's the second one, especially if you're unemployed and looking for a job because you feel like, oh, loser, whatever, I don't have a job. How do I explain that? But the reality is, when that question is asked, that's an awesome opportunity for you to kind of launch into your elevator pitch, if you will. And you could answer it creatively, in whatever way you want. But it might be, well, actually, earlier this year I was evacuated from my Peace Corps country of service in wherever, right, due to COVID. And at this, um which has resulted in me thinking about what's next. And I'm currently exploring opportunities. I'm a blah 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 professional, whatever, in whatever your field, and looking to use my whatever skills in the public or private sector, whatever your interest area is. And so that you just very succinctly put out a little bit of what you're looking for. And you'd be amazed sometimes when you're talking, it's like, oh really, have you checked out FHI 360? They have a great program in international development and a lot of blah blah blah. Like, people will throw out things as a way of keeping the conversation going, right? So that can be really helpful as well. And lastly, here listed is, it pumps up your job search. And from that, I think the meaning is, it can get you more jazzed and more motivated in it, right? When you have interaction, especially with, other people. And it's the holidays. So it's that time of year where people tend to generally, maybe not always this year, but tend to be in a better, mood, and help, just more open to helping people, right? It's just that season of giving and all of that. And so it can really help. The other thing that you can do is pump up your own job search by spending some of your time over the holidays doing some activities related to, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later as well, but your resume, really kind of getting that fine tuned, and your LinkedIn profile, and some of those things, really doing some of those behind the scenes things that are really important as well. So great. It also allows you to really, prepare for your New Year's resolution success, because I don't know about you, but just from my 12 years of working with RPCVs, around the holidays, typically their New Year's resolution either was or included, find my dream job or find a job. Sometimes it's find a job, and then they'll work toward their dream job. Maybe they're not in a place where they're able to get to that right now without additional experience or, whatever, but find a job is very, very high on the list, if not the number one, right? So you can actually spend some time doing these activities that we're going to talk about here to help you get to that New Year's resolution and actually achieve it, right? Successfully. So there's lots of things that you can do. So I do want to ask you to dump any questions that you have into the chat box, which I have pulled up here as well. And I'm happy to answer any of your questions, whether it's right in the moment when you answer it, or if I'm going to be covering it later, I'll maybe wait until later on. But please put them in the chat box, and I'm here to help. So, all right. So let's see. So some of your productive job search tasks that you can do during the holidays. One is LinkedIn. Work on your LinkedIn. You can always improve your LinkedIn, right? A lot of people have the skeleton outline, just of their, name and stuff, but haven't added maybe even a picture yet. And you really want to add a picture because it increases the likeliness exponentially that an employer will actually open it up. And yes, they do research LinkedIn. They'll look for you on LinkedIn when they're making their hiring decisions. Most do. I forget. I think the stat was something like 80%. It's really high that will do that search. And so one of the things you might even do with your LinkedIn profile, once you get it up to speed and you feel okay about it, on your resume, you might even include your LinkedIn URL, because that's like your own private little website, if you will, right, to your profile. And you can shorten it. I would definitely recommend that you shorten the LinkedIn URL, and you can do that just by going to your profile and then the little edit button that'll be by the, and it'll say, personalize or whatever your URL. And you can usually make it something with just your name, like make it your name instead of LinkedIn gives you a default one that's like part of your name and then all these letters and numbers. It just doesn't make sense. So you could do it much more, succinctly you might be lucky to get just first name, last name. And that's great if you can. If it's already taken, you can personalize it by maybe adding a few numbers at the end, but still keeping it simple, or you could put like a little underscore or something. So lots of ways you can do that, but definitely that's something good to spend your time on over the holidays, improving your LinkedIn. So updating it, and by that I mean updating your summary, right? Your job titles, which don't have to be, again, your actual job. You're not limited to your actual current job title. It will default to your current job title if you don't put anything else, if you don't personalize it. But you can actually put several with the, and I forget what it's called, but the bar, the straight up and down, not the slash, but the straight up and down in between. And you can have a couple different, maybe one of your things that you're like you've done in the past, and you're really kind of one of your skill sets is program manager, or social media, something, things like that. You can actually add those to your profile, so that can really help you. Okay. Join groups within LinkedIn. There's a ton of groups, and this is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's going to connect you with other like-minded professionals who believe in whatever that group is. It could be from an industry, it could be from some kind of advocacy type of group. There's so many groups, right? So one of the things that you can do is just explore what kind of groups there are. But when you're looking at people's profiles and you see what group, maybe they're in the industry that you want to work in, check out their LinkedIn profile. Look at what groups are they in. Oh, that sounds like a good group. And so you join some of these groups, which is great because it helps you keep up to speed on trends and such, which can make you look more in the know. It also allows you to connect with different people and see like who's posting on there. You can post, once you're a member of the group, you could post maybe an interesting article you came across. And by doing that, now not over posting like all the time, but posting sometimes and commenting on other people's posts, you kind of build this reputation for yourself as an active group participant, but also as potentially even a thought leader. And that can be really impressive and helpful. And when people see your name more, they recognize it, so that when you might think about reaching out and asking for a career chat, which we'll discuss in a moment, they might be more open to it because they recognize your name. You're not just some stranger, and you would want to actually put in your request, I'm a fellow member of the da 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 da. I really loved seeing your whatever blah blah posts, if they post things, would love to connect with you professionally. If that's your connection, right? So but what's great is you can, when you're in a group that somebody else is in, you don't have the limits on how long your intro, like your letter, your little note to them to ask to connect can be. Normally it's I think limited to, I don't know if it's 300 characters or something like that. So it's pretty short. I mean, it's long enough, but it's short enough for you to say a little bit, right? But you don't have those limits when you're in the same group. You can send an IM, that instant message, without the limits, which is very nice. That's a huge bonus. So um, I hope that's helpful for you. And then you can search for connections, right? People connections, organizations, that kind of thing, but the people connections, to see, who's out there, right? The biggest tip that I give with LinkedIn, and this isn't about LinkedIn, so I'm going to make this brief, but I mean, overall, but we have a whole webinar or two on LinkedIn and using LinkedIn in the job search. But and I'm trying to get organized. I'm trying to work with LinkedIn, the actual organization, to see if they might be able to allow one of their experts to actually maybe go in and do like a sample profile, kind of discussion, and have somebody who's brave enough to have theirs reviewed or whatnot, to really give you more insight into LinkedIn as well. So I am working on that, know that. But with the connections, when you're looking for the connections, the easiest connection for you to make is fellow RPCVs. And we are 220,000 strong. So not everyone is on LinkedIn clearly, but a lot are, that are in the active, working world anyway. So because it's become so big, it is like the biggest and quote unquote best connector for people. Kind of gotten a corner on the market. So you can put in, when you're doing like a search, right, for people, you can actually show all filters, and you can do, I want to see people who, former employer, Peace Corps, just Peace Corps, current employer, whatever the organization you're interested in finding somebody from is, or organizations. I think you can put multiple, right? And then it will spit out, people who meet that criteria, which is awesome, because then you can just do your search, your instant message to them, and ask to connect, and you could put in there, what your connection is, what your, hi, I'm a fellow RPCV having served in Ethiopia, before being evacuated, putting in that evacuation if that's the case, because that's a story, and it's a really important part of who you are, and it's something that's going to intrigue them, like, oh my goodness, my heart went out to all of you. Like, it's probably going to engage them more, to be more willing. Even just I'm a fellow RPCV, we're a family. RPCVs want to help other RPCVs, obviously. It's not hard. They don't have any prep if they're doing a career chat. You're just asking them, to speak a little more about their own experience and any tips or advice they might have for a professional such as yourself looking to, break into, that field or whatever. So it can, I think it's a really good way to find those connections and request to connect, and then, and actually try to do a career chat virtually is fine right now, right? If and when the world, when we open up again, then yeah, you can give them the choice. I'm happy to, come to you if you are in the same city, right? Or meet you somewhere, or, online if that's better for you. Let them choose. Sometimes they're looking for an opportunity to just get away from the screen and get, so they like the in-person. I know a lot of people like that. It's a nice break from their routine, maybe a lot of computer work stuff. So that's actually important as well. So great. All right, let's keep going on here. So more productive tasks during the holidays, right? Spending time updating your resume and other application materials, right? This is really good time. You can either, if you've gotten a little more clarity on what your main maybe focus or foci, if you're looking at more than one area, what are the few kind of markets or areas you're really interested in, right? And so you can spend some time really updating your resume and your cover letter, right? During that time, during the holidays, right? So this is for example, even if you don't find a lot of jobs that are out there that you're interested in, you could always take advantage of this time to really, update and hone in on your resume, that skill set that you're really looking to use. And of course, you're going to personalize and tailor every resume. But I will tell you, it is a lot easier if you have a few like sample, resumes that are kind of your master, or maybe one that you've tailored from your master. You always want your master resume, but then one that you've tailored to a certain sector. You're going to always want to, when you're going for another job, choose the resume that is most similar to the job that you're now applying for, and then save a copy of that with the new title and all of that. And that way you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from a resume that has similar skills and experiences that are outlined, and then you can tailor it only for those little things that are different, or for the specific opportunity. It's just a way to save a lot of time and a lot of frustration, because resume writing is not something that most people like, and doing it again and again and again. So same thing with the cover letter. You can kind of hone that, maybe, use some of those creative cover letter styles that we, had discussed in the cover letter session that we've done. And again, that workshop, along with any other of our webinars, is going to be online at our global reentry playlist, which I will reference in my in the email that I send you, the follow-up email with resources. Okay. Your references, preparing your references. A lot of times people don't think about doing this until they need them. And that's actually probably, it's not the best idea, because then you're rushed. Your employer is asking for them. So then you have to reach out and try to get it in touch with, because you do need to ask for permission. Absolutely. If you haven't used them for 10 years, or, you're probably going to give more recent references generally, but there might be one from your past that's really relevant, in terms of maybe you were working in a similar field using the same kind of skill set, so that it would be really helpful to have that one. So you, instead of doing it at that moment's notice where you're having to like the rush, leave my reference, that kind of stuff, and it doesn't give them very long to prepare for being a reference, because maybe they're calling them the next day. Instead, if you take this time to prepare your references, first of all, asking, deciding who do you want to be professional references for you. And when you're talking about that, you typically want to choose people who are your supervisors, right? Or managers, right? People who have supervised you in your work, or at least people who have a really good insight into the quality of your work, and who can vouch for what you've done and, how great you are. A lot of times people make the mistake of choosing the highest level person at the company, thinking that the higher level or better job title is going to be more impressive, when the reality is it's what they share about you. If you're high level, country director from Peace Corps, for example, great. If you worked with them like a lot, maybe you were a volunteer leader the third year and you were on task force with them, and they have a very, fine, use them. But if not, use your program director. They're the one who's going to be able to speak a lot more directly to your work and all that kind of thing. So choose the best candidate who's going to be able to talk best about you. That is of utmost importance. Not so much, oh, they have a fancy title, they're country director, or they're, foreign service officer. Because what happens is, if they reach out to them and they don't know as much about your work, it's going to be obvious, especially if it's been some time ago. Well, she, yeah, right? So, and regardless, you always want to prepare them for any time that you're releasing their name and such. You want to give them either a copy of your resume, attach copy of your resume, and maybe even copy and paste the portion that relates to when you were working for them in an email, so they have that. So it's easy for them to make you shine. If they have that little cheat sheet, when that person calls and says, so when did they work with you? They pull that up and they're like, oh yes, they were here from 2017 to 2019. They were a 2-year volunteer, extended, whatever, right? They can make it sound much better. Like, wow, they remember them so well. That means they must have made a good impression generally, right? So try to do that, and it helps them also. And you might even let them know, because they don't usually ask for the references until the end, when they're wanting to really, like, maybe they're debating between two candidates, and they're generally always going to check references as a standard practice, to just make sure that others speak well of you, whatever. But they may, you know like when they reference them, when they reach out to them, like I said, you want them to be able to speak very well of you and know the kinds of jobs. You might even consider in your email to them, where you attach your full resume, and maybe you even, spotlight, like I said, the the time that you worked with them, but to say, I'm excited about this job because it really would be an opportunity to use my proven research skills and this. Give them a little bit about why you're excited and what the main skills they're looking for are, so that they can help you further by hopefully honing in on some of those. Well, her research skills are really, excellent. She was very instrumental in a program where we researched da 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 da. Like, that's going to help you rise to the top. So your references can help you, but only as much as you allow them to or enable them to by prepping them and being, yeah. So okay, so I think that's enough on references, I hope. We have, again, an entire workshop that talks about references and how to identify references, who can be your references. Please, know that it could be if you were in grad school, maybe it's your, mentor, got your, oh my gosh, why am I blanking? Your supervisor, if you were, doing work study, that kind of thing. The professor, it could be, but it could also be someone from a volunteer work activity. It doesn't have to be paid. Maybe you volunteered your time for 3 years working with whatever organization, and they can speak well of your or your skill set. That's fine too. So okay, great. All righty. So let's seek out and conduct career chats. Absolutely. This is very, as I was saying, very important. And career chats can really help you gain additional insight on organizations or the industry, whether or not you might actually like the industry, right? The pros and cons. It might actually connect you with somebody who in the future might be helpful for you in referring you on to a job. That definitely helps. You don't want to reach out to them so that they think you just want to have a connection so that they can refer you on to this job. Like, hey, I'm applying for a job. Would you, refer me? Well, they don't even know you. No, they're not going to do that. But once you have a career chat and you've talked with them and you've talked about what what your area of interest is and gotten their advice and followed up with a thank you note, you so appreciate the time they took. Once you get an opportunity in the future, if it's from that organization, there's no reason why you shouldn't reach out to that person if you felt like you had a good connection and such, and say, hey, wanted to thank you once again for helping, for visiting with me last month. Your information or whatever, blah, 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 and tips were so helpful. In fact, I'm excited to share. I have just been offered an interview for or no, not even interview. I've just applied for a job at FHI 360. I'm not sure if you're in that, if you have any knowledge of that department, but it seems like a really good fit for my, da 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 da. So I'm, hoping to apply, and, thanks for any insight you might have. That they might then reach out to somebody, or maybe they know, oh, I started in that area. It's a great area, or it's not, or whatever, right? And to help, and then they may offer to say, by saying, hey, shoot me your resume. I'd be happy to promote, to forward it on. The truth of the matter is, many organizations now pay referral bonuses to employees who refer on job seekers who end up getting hired. They get, like, maybe it's a $300 or $500, that's awesome, right? Like, of course they're going to love to do that, if you get hired, and that's great. So think about that. And I do have, for career chats, I have and I call them career chats. Many of you may be thinking, what is that? Like, I'm used to informational interviews, and it's the same thing. But an informational interview does not roll off your tongue as well as a career chat. A career chat is much simpler in sounding, like, hey, chat a little bit about your career, tips and advice you might have. Whereas informational interview sounds very long. It sounds like, oh gosh, I'd love to help, but I don't have an hour. It just by nature how it comes across. So I encourage you to use the wording of career chats instead. And when you're doing a career chat, there's some sample questions that I actually covered in my career chat informational interviewing webinar that you can listen to in its entirety. But do want to show you, a couple of them. So, one of the biggest things is, of course, what do you like most, and what's, the biggest challenge for your position or your industry or sector, whatever, right? So they can talk about the pros and cons, because that's really important, right? Um, Another one, if you were in my position, looking to, this is one that I usually ask at the end, ask them first before you get to this one, more about their own background. I'd love to hear a little more about your own experience. I mean, in looking at your LinkedIn profile, I noticed that and reference that you've checked them out on LinkedIn. Because otherwise you don't want to go in and say, well, tell me about yourself, like you don't know anything. It's good to know something about them, and they take that as a compliment. So, by saying, in looking, in preparing for this, I reviewed your LinkedIn profile and I was really impressed by XYZ. And I love the fact that you're involved in that. Can you tell me more about your experience in that and how you got involved, whatever, like go from there, right? I know that you had a science background. Can you tell me a little more about your career trajectory and the most helpful jobs that led you to where you are now, or whatever it is? I'm just coming up with these off the top of my head, right? Just thinking about some, ways that you can get information from them about the organization, the sector, what, all of that is very important and helpful, and it makes them feel helpful too, right? And they're honored to be asked about, oh wow, she's done research on me, right? That they're usually honored by that. Okay. So toward the end of it, as I was starting to say a little bit ago, I love this question, the number two question there. If you were in my position looking to pursue opportunities in this field, who are the two or three people or organizations you would connect with? So you're putting them on the spot, not on the spot, but you're asking for their input, either for people and or organizations that they would recommend that you connect with if you're interested in working in that field, right? So I will tell you from experience, a lot of experience in this, in asking this question and talking to clients who've asked it, mostly they're going to come back with organizations, right? Because they're not going to want to necessarily just put somebody on the spot, whatever, from just saying their name. Sometimes they'll say names, but if they say the organizations, that's fine. You are just writing down what they're saying, like just literally, oh, great, and keep them going. Like just let them go. And then once it's blah, they're done. They've shared all they're going to share. You can say, wow, this is a really good list. Thank you so much. I will definitely follow up on these organizations you've shared, or whatever. And then your last question after that could be, do you think any of those, if they say people, do you think any of those contacts might be as gracious as you've been to spend 15, 20 minutes of their time chatting about their own experience, right? Or if they didn't give you any people's names, you could say, this is great. This is a great list of organizations. I will definitely follow up on this. Do you by chance know anyone in any of these organizations, working in any of these organizations, who might be as gracious as you've been to spend 15, 20 minutes of their time chatting with me about their own experience? And that's a really nice way, very professional way for them to, if they feel comfortable, to say, shoot me an email and I'll send it on to my colleague Harry, or they might be willing to give it out. Many times they won't, because they're trying to be, professional and not share, contact information. Everyone's, kind of wary of PII and all of that. So they might want to make the contact. And if they do, that's fine. Then you send that follow-up email, which you're always going to do a thank you anyway, right? Even if they don't have contacts to refer you to, you're going to thank them. But in that, I would make sure to put, thank you / in the subject line, referral to Jane Doe, whatever it is, the name, so that they see that up front. Because here's the thing, this is what happens, and it happens a lot. And it's not because they don't want to help you. It's because they get an inbox that's so full and they're trying to go through. And if they don't see clearly from the subject line what's needed from them, they may not open it fully. Like they may use their auto preview and just see that first line that says, thanks so much for taking the time to meet with me, yesterday, regarding blah, blah, blah. Like they may just think it's a thank you note. And they're like, oh, great. They said, thank you. Yeah, done. Like, and if they miss out then on, as per your recommendation, I'm forwarding you my resume, to connect with or to forward to your colleague, Earl, or whatever it is, right? So make sure that you make it really, really clear. I suggest by putting in the subject line and at the very kind of beginning, so they see that reference. Okay, great. I have been talking a lot here. I want to definitely allow you all to, if you have any questions, to dump them in the chat box here. I don't see any coming in right now, but please, anything about the holiday job search first, And then if there's extra time when we're done with those questions, happy to also, chat about anything else. So other ideas that you have, other questions you have about the job search right now, dump them into the chat box. Okay. All right. Thanks everyone and have a great day.